Hey, can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we hear you.
Great. Awesome.
I think that we can start the community call. People who are interested, they have the chance to check the recording later. And
Sure. Let's do it.
Yago, you will update on strategy and light on development. Yeah, and we have some questions which we received.
I think we can just go through the questions and I'll try to answer them and John can jump in if he needs to.
Okay.
So, do you want to ask the questions and I'll seek to answer them?
Yeah, sure. 1 second. I have to find them. Too many open tabs.
All right, so you've sent me the questions now. I see the first one is, are we going to see something from staking fish? There is an additional question regarding the staking rewards. And then there's a third question about what is going to be the need for XUSD once the Sovryn Dollar is live? And I'm going to try and answer all three of these questions as part of the same answer. So what I expect is going to happen is that Sovryn Dollar is going to become the primary stablecoin in the Sovryn ecosystem. Potentially the only stablecoin in the ecosystem. And that is to help prevent systemic risk from entering the Sovryn ecosystem. So stablecoins play an extremely important role within any economy. And we've seen how you can have major centralized stablecoins, like, for example, USDC and Ethereum, take over an ecosystem. And then the entire ecosystem is exposed to the whims, decisions, and risks that are associated with the stablecoin. Is not healthy. What that would mean is that XUSD will have much less of a footprint in the Sovryn ecosystem. And so I think what we're going to see is an evolution, at least in the medium term, of BabelFish. From being primarily about the creation of a diversified stablecoin and to become more like a curve-like product, a swaps product for stablecoins. And in that role, BabelFish is proving to be extremely important. So, we've seen significant inflow of millions of dollars in the form of ZUSD, RDoC, and DOC into BabelFish. And BabelFish by far is the dominant exchange for stablecoins within the rootstock ecosystem. Doing over the course of the last month about $5.6 million in trades. And I suspect that this will be a very good thing for BabelFish. So before I get into why this is a good thing for BabelFish, maybe worth lingering on this for a second, how important systemically BabelFish has become to the rootstock ecosystem. So one of the issues that happened over the course of the last week was that the decision was taken by BabelFish to hold the deposits of RDoC. And this was because RDoC was becoming a large holding within BabelFish, but we weren't seeing the rise in RDoC and RIF liquidity on the rootstock ecosystem happen in tandem. And so the decision was taken to halt RDoC deposits. Now, the result was that this impacted the transactional activity and the work of pretty much all the projects on the chain, right? It led to crypto markets, money on chain, putting together a meeting with IOV Labs to discuss this. It actually brought a lot of the rootstock community together. And the last that I heard, IOV Labs have started to provide liquidity to BabelFish and are looking to potentially put forward a proposal to acquire fish tokens so that they can have more of a voice within the BabelFish plutocracy. And it just generally demonstrates how fundamentally important what BabelFish have built is to the rootstock ecosystem. Now, at the same time, the constraint of maintaining XUSD as a stablecoin has meant has actually limited and made it more complicated for fish stakers to earn fees from the trades. And the reason for that is if you try to keep a one-to-one pricing of XUSD to the underlying stablecoins, which is what currently exists, then first of all, it's not easy to arbitrage or incentivize additional liquidity, especially if there's a lot of demand for USDT, it's hard to incentivize that demand. And it's also hard to earn a profit. But with a transition to a more exchange-based model, I think XUSD could effectively become like the LP token of BabelFish, and as such will become like a yield-bearing stablecoin. So this is a question of design, and my expectation, or what I would recommend with regards to this, is that the revenues from that trade be split 50-50% between the LPs and the fish stakers, and that will start to deliver some revenue there to the fish stakers. So going back to the questions that were asked, what is the point of staking fish? What will happen to XUSD when the Sovryn Dollar becomes the primary stablecoin in Sovryn? I think what will happen is it will become easier for fish and BabelFish more generally to become revenue positive. I think the primary role of BabelFish, at least in the medium term, will become more about exchange and less about the stablecoin. And then in the longer term, I would like, to see, and I've mentioned this before, I think XUSD should be exported to other chains, and we should see the same thing that has been built on Rootstock launched on other ecosystems, because I think the use case has already been proven, and now it's a question of expanding beyond just the Rootstock ecosystem.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, so we have some questions which were asked after the last community call, and this is regards the Sovryn incubation. So what are the costs for this incubation period?
So the cost of the way the incubation period is being done is as follows. Sovryn is trying to work with BabelFish in two ways. First of all, providing additional assistance in terms of just manpower and resources where necessary, and more fundamentally, helping to try and deliver what we've learned about collaboration, sprint planning, specs writing, and basically how to effectively organize a decentralized pseudonymous team. So in practice, the costs are basically Sovryn is charging BabelFish at cost, right? So if one of the Sovryn core developers, for example, spends half of their time during a sprint on BabelFish, then BabelFish are simply charged half of the cost that developer demands from Sovryn. So there's no sort of profit being made by Sovryn on this. It's mostly Sovryn engaging in this because of the strategic importance of BabelFish and the close ties between our communities. And the actual costs, I don't have them in front of me, but it's been quite low. So it's actually been allowing BabelFish to significantly increase its runway.
Okay, cool. I hope it will satisfy the community member who asked this question. Yeah, I think then we can jump to the question about what are the specific agreements. And incubation is rather generic phrase.
It's just what I've just described.
Yeah. I suppose we can expect some more detailed financial report soon, so it will be additionally
So
covered.
my understanding is that the financial report has mostly been completed, but is slated for the end of this year.
Yeah, and we have two other questions which can be also combined together. Also, who does what, and who from Sovryn is dedicating resources into BabelFish? And we have another question also about the team. Who from BabelFish team is still working? Who from Sovryn is working for BabelFish or on BabelFish? And how many people are involved in this project? How many devs and who are they?
So if I'm not mistaken, the only dev who is 100% full-time on BabelFish right now is Dark Matter, who's led the development of the project from the beginning. And then you're on the project, and then some other people are on the project, and then people like Tyrone, Tiltum are dedicating part of their time to BabelFish. I think also John Light, for example, is dedicating part of his time to BabelFish.
Yeah, can we maybe at some point make a list of people who are working on this project? I think it would be also helpful.
I mean, you can just look at the repo to see the actual activity of the devs.
Yeah. Okay. And I suppose the on financial side is in hands of Armando.
I think I'm actually not sure what who the multi-sig signers are.
Yeah, but I suppose he's working on the financial.
I know he's been working on that. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So there are actually many people involved in this. Okay.
Yeah.
We have also a question about other stables on Ethereum and BSC do rather well in this bear market. Are there any plans to solve the problem with stablecoins liquidity when bridging out of RSK? We have heard previously about some incentivizing mechanism being worked on, but I doubt that it will solve the problems quickly.
Right. So I don't think that there's one solution. Ultimately, what we need to see is so economic incentives can solve most of the problem. And I think they can do so also while also generating revenue. And the way that would work is, let's say that there's a lot of demand for USDT because people want to, as we are seeing with ZUSD, people want to bridge sovereign dollars or ZUSD to Tether, for example, on Binance or on Tron or whatever. Right, the use case there is a lot of people, especially in the developing world, transact in USDT, but they hold the funds potentially in Sovryn Dollar or XUSD or one of the rootstock stablecoins. So what we need is we need to incentivize USDT to flow into the system. And the way we do that is by basically charging people to buy the USDT and then paying what is being charged minus trade or transaction fee to people who are delivering USDT. And so that's one part of the solution. The other part of the solution is one of the big sources or big drivers right now has been the influx of ZUSD into the BabelFish pool. And so what I expect is we're going to start seeing more and more. ZUSD is going to become part of the sovereign dollar, and then once that happens, the sovereign dollar will become the primary stablecoin in sovereign, and then we'll start to see more and more demand for sovereign dollars. And so that kind of holding demand, right? There'll still be sovereign dollars flowing into BabelFish, but there'll be more demand to pull sovereign dollars out of BabelFish, which will help balance out the flows. So I think right now we're going through a period of unbalanced flows, but there's a lot of work being done to introduce those products and systems which will help balance out the flows.
Okay, yeah, cool. But I have a question then. Are we going to include maybe Tron network for the stables?
Right. So I think probably it will become quite easy. Maybe John Light, you can speak to this with the introduction of Multichain.
Well, there's not a whole lot to say there, but yeah, with multi-chain, the multi-chain is a bridge protocol that supports multiple different chains, certainly many more chains than the Sovryn bridge currently supports, and so initially we'll just be swapping out the stable coins currently supported by the Sovryn bridge for the multi-chain equivalent. But in the future, we could see stable coins from other chains be bridged into the aggregator as well through multi-chain. I mean, technically, we could start doing it already since multi-chain is already integrated with rootstock, but we would need to make sure that the user interface is adaptable to that. So both on the BabelFish interface as well as any interfaces that Sovryn would use if Sovryn wants to support withdrawing to those chains or depositing from those chains. So once the basic multi-chain integration is in place, I think we can look at expanding to stablecoins from other chains.
Yeah, I think that it would be cool to have exposure on the other chains, and yeah, also like Yago, you said, having XUSD expanding to other chains would be also very cool. Yeah, and we have one question left. What is happening with BabelVerse? I don't know if you recall, there was this.
I don't know what's happening with BabelVerse, but one of the things which so when we started this collaboration between BabelFish and Sovryn, one of the things that I was a bit aggressive about was asking that payments stop being made to BabelVerse because I didn't know what had been delivered and wasn't clear to me when things would be delivered, and I thought it was very, very important, like what we had done with Sovryn, to conserve funds and reduce spend. And so it wasn't my decision, but I was significantly influential, I think, or responsible or I was a significant advocate for not providing additional grants to the BabelVerse team, and I don't know if the BabelVerse team are continuing to work regardless. Not that I think that there's anything wrong with the BabelVerse team. I think they're great guys, and I really like them, and I know that they're also Sovryn supporters. It's just that, as a decision, purely, nuts and bolts, pragmatic decision for economic reasons, I think it was necessary to stop that grant. And Dollar Crypto and Arcmatter and Armando and others agreed with me, and so the grant was stopped.
Yeah, okay. So, but I suppose at some point, if the market conditions are going to be better, we could do it further if the community supports this. Yes.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Okay. So these were the questions, and this covered also some parts about the strategy. Yago, do you want to add anything on the strategy?
Look, I think it's that BabelFish currently its trajectory is very tied to the trajectory of Sovryn and Rootstock. I think in terms of that, in terms of sort of basically owning the stablecoin trade space in the Sovryn and Rootstock ecosystems, BabelFish is very well positioned, but it doesn't completely control, the fate of that market. Now, I think the fate of that market is extremely bright. Sovryn is by far the leading project in Rootstock. BabelFish is number 2. Rootstock as a project is 5 times in terms of TVL the size of Stacks. We have built the leading DeFi ecosystem for Bitcoin, the leading smart contract platform for Bitcoin, the leading Bitcoin-backed stablecoin systems for Bitcoin, and this is a very young market, but nothing has, if anything, the events of the last months have demonstrated, I think, to the world and to us that the need for sound financial tools built on Bitcoin, trustless ways to use Bitcoin without intermediaries. This is so obvious. It's so easy to explain to people why this is important. So I think the opportunity for growth is very, very significant. That said, BabelFish is not tied only to Rootstock or to Sovryn. And so while we are working closely together, and while if Sovryn and Rootstock do well, I think the future of BabelFish is pretty much guaranteed. I would like to see BabelFish become sort of like, the cross-chain player in this, and start looking to involve itself and provide its value and the tooling that it's built to other chains. And right now there's a lot of work being done around improvements to the staking contracts, dealing with some potential exploits, introducing the curves, introducing a new UI. But what I would hope to see after all of those things is additional, is at least a significant examination of the ability to enter into new markets. So to summarize, I think if Rootstock and Sovryn do well, BabelFish is basically guaranteed to do well. And I also think it can hedge its bets and potentially expand beyond that, which would be good for Rootstock and Sovryn as well, because it would bring a lot of attention and the flow of funds. Yeah, so if it wasn't clear, that's what I had to say on that. To summarize, I think now is a difficult time in terms of the flows and a huge amount of work that needs to be done. But I think the positioning is very, very good.
So the things you just said were at some point also discussed with Dollar Crypto back then. And yeah, it's nice to see that this vision is shared and we can grow beyond RSK and do some great stuff. But the question that was hanging also in the discussions with the community when the community can expect some rewards, and if is there a chance to also reward those who stake their fish at very early stage?
What we did with Sovryn is at some point we introduced SOV rewards for SOV stakers, and those are that the ability to get into that is closed, but those are still ongoing. I think it would make sense for BabelFish to do something similar.
Yeah, that would be cool. Okay, you told also about what's being worked on, so I think now it's time for Light to tell a little bit more about it.
Sure. If folks have been reading the BabelFish community blog, these updates won't be news. But yeah, the main projects development-wise that are being worked on are the new user interface, which is very close to being done and is just being updated to accommodate the new emergency deposit pause feature that was recently activated. Once that update is made, the new BabelFish user interface will be able to be deployed and go into production so people can use it. And the two smart contract projects that are currently being worked on are the fix for the staking contract, which is a collaboration with the Sovryn devs, since BabelFish and Sovryn use the same staking contract, and the incentive algorithm, which is Yago described a bit earlier, and I think has been described on the blog and in the forum. But the basic idea is that you can set target weights for each of the stablecoins that are part of the BabelFish basket, and if a deposit or withdrawal moves the target weight, or I should say, if it moves the weight further away from the target weight, then a fee will be incurred on the transaction. And then if a deposit or withdrawal brings the weight closer to the target weight, then a reward will be provided. And so the purpose of this is to incentivize keeping the balances of the stable coins that are in the aggregator as close to their target weights as possible. And that particular project is still under development. It's almost at the stage where it's ready to be deployed to testnet. And then at that point, we'll need to make another update to the new BabelFish user interface to accommodate for this fee that and reward that is being implemented with the incentive algorithm. And once sufficient testing has been done, then we can hold a BabelFish vote to implement the incentive algorithm and deploy it to mainnet. But yeah, the work has been going well. It's steadily progressing, so folks should expect to see those changes going live in early 2023.
And when can we expect the new UI to be introduced?
It remains to be seen whether we'll be able to get it done before the people start taking time off for the holidays later this month. But I think in the best case scenario, we're able to get the new BabelFish UI online before the end of this month, and then if the work ends up carrying over through the holidays, then it'll be online sometime in early January.
Yeah, cool. That would be very cool. Okay. Do we have anything else to let the community know about?
I think we've covered a lot, actually. And hopefully we've answered all of the questions.
And for sure, some other questions will pop up later, but there are some nice things to unpack for the community and to think about. And yeah, I think we in the new year, once the new UI will be launched, it will be nice to have a community call and get some feedback from the community about it. And one more question about the staking contract. What's the status of the work unpausing the staking contract?
I don't have a timeline around that yet.
Okay, guys. I think we can wrap it up. I will just publish the recording once it's ready. Thank you very much, and yeah, have a nice evening.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thanks for having us.
Thank you all. Bye.
Bye.